Good morning, you guys. Welcome. This is Dennis Sperling, and I am back with Dennis Sperling Unfiltered. And I have a very special treat today for you guys, something that those of you guys who really know what the Manosphere is all about will greatly appreciate. Let me say it like this. Well, first of all, big shout out to my new members. Thank you guys so much. Hit the number one button if you appreciate the work we're doing here. As you see, the background is different. The reason it's different is because, well, this is an early morning broadcast. Normally I do this in the afternoon, but as you see, I'm here today in my office, and I wanted to make a special time to accommodate our very special guest here. And you guys have read the title. You know what's about to happen. If you're excited about this, hit the number one button. Make sure you hit the W for the win, because this is definitely a win for all of the Manosphere. But let's talk about it. A lot of people in the Manosphere throw around terms like red pill, blue pill, the wall, shaming language, a shit test, cock carousel, but they have no idea of the origins of these terms or the people that form them or why. We need to talk about the fundamental lessons. And this is important because a lot of young men are missing this information, especially with the space going mainstream. A great majority of the concepts and teachings are being lost to the alpha, beta, male, female, submission, domination, BS that people only know of and learn through sound bites on TikTok clips. People like Tom Leykis, Thinking Ape, Razorblade, Candy, Barbarossa, Stardusk, and of course, the Sandman are the originators of what we call red pill knowledge, but which originally derived from men awakening to a corrupt society that saw them as nothing more than utilities to be used and disposed of. Thereafter, they opted to do their own thing, and they opted to go their own way. After the men's rights movement failed in the 80s and 90s, men sought refuge on the internet. There was nearly 3 decades of history that predates what is currently referred to the Manosphere, be it black or white. In that time period, the originators have come and gone. Since the Manosphere has become popular, there are many who have popped up in the past 6 or 7 years who attempt to lay claim to its formation. However, these individuals are often unable to expound in detail on the direction that the Manosphere is heading because they don't understand the circumstances in which it was formed. The Sandman, MGTOW, with over 100 million views on his YouTube page and over 2,600 videos, has been for the past decade one of the most prolific progenitors of red pill philosophy or knowledge. He is the originator of so many of the terms that many use and most misuse. Sandman has been able to predict as far back as 8 years ago the woke left would begin to eat itself and the rise of transgender athletes taking over women's sports, and the response society would have to men who have taken the red pill. His accuracy is uncanny. He has also been one of the greatest teachers related to female nature. And I'm glad to finally welcome him to Dennis Sperling Unfiltered. That said, EnTeR Sandman. Welcome, Sandman. How are you today, sir?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Thank you so much for taking your time. I certainly appreciate this opportunity. I have been personally listening to you probably, my God, I would say at least, I want to go as far back as 2014, maybe 2013. I was one of the first people to subscribe to your channels back then. And it was at that time I was going through a horrible divorce. And so, those red pills that I consumed, that were very helpful for my understanding. But anyway, Sandman, please feel free to introduce yourself, how you got involved in MGTOW. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. So how I got involved in MGTOW, I was in a relationship. I got out, and I was looking for dating advice because I didn't want to make the same mistakes that I made before. And I started looking for dating advice, and I discovered a video by Thinking Ape, also known as Stardusk at the time. And I watched, it was a compilation about an hour and a half. And in that video, I realized, wait a minute, this isn't dating advice. This is advice on not to date in the first place.
Right.
So then I kind of took the red pill and I went down the rabbit hole, and It's cemented. And then I got the red pill rage, which we didn't really have a term for back then, and I coined that term, and
Yeah.
now that's spreading all over the manosphere.
Yeah.
Now I hear it's people using the term orange pill rage for Bitcoiners and stuff. So it's kind of interesting to see that evolve and move into other areas, which is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, yes, I appreciate you saying that I did originate a lot of the terms, but you have to give a lot of credit to Barbarossa and Stardusk. I mean, they were the ones that really came up with like the basic language and foundation that we use today. And most people don't even know about them. The people that find me, they say, "Oh, you're the creator," and I'm like, "No, I'm not. These guys are." And they're like, "Well, where are they?" Right? Like, Thinking Ape has now become a black pill channel, and Barbarossa is retired. So I don't know. I don't know what happened there.
Well, I actually listened to one of Barbarossa's videos, and he was someone that, okay, so here's how it happened, and this is crazy. I started off doing research on the internet just on I think I was trying to do some research on racism in the United States. And that led me to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who I was familiar with. And she had a friendship and a camaraderie with Tariq Nasheed, who had like a pickup artist of Mac lessons. From there, that led me to Angry MGTOW. And at some point, he was raging against you for some reason. He's like, "That's Sandman." And he mentioned, I'm like, "Well, I need to check this guy out." And so once I started listening to Sandman, I probably consumed about 15 or 20 of your videos every day. And so from that point, that's what introduced me to what is now referred to as the Black Manosphere, because you or Ibmore, you mentioned BGS Ibmore. And once that happened, I'll start listening to him, and then Obsidian. And then, those are the people that I consume. But the thing is, and I think that people don't understand the history of the Manosphere and where it came from. Would you mind talking a little bit about MRM, the men's rights movement, from your understanding and all that you've done in your videos?
First of all, like people say that they kind of want to separate it into like the Black Manosphere and then everything. I think that it's important to look at Barbarossa as being a man from Puerto Rico who actually originated all of these ideas and took things from the MRA all the way into MGTOW.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. So I think the idea is we've in a lot of ways we've obliterated race, and I think we should, because we all face these same problems. Female nature is a universal. But getting back to your idea of the men's rights movement, I when I first got involved, I was consuming MRM content and MGTOW content, and I considered myself both. And so I started getting involved with the men's rights movement in Canada. I got involved with, I went to a conference for Voice for Men, and I just didn't get a good vibe from it. Like I got the feeling that it was just, it was a lot of grifting. It's kind of like what the red pill has become these days with the pickup artist community. It's the same kind of feeling you get. So it went away and became less relevant, and then MGTOW kind of took over a lot of the intellectual discussion at that point.
So there are some terms and that I want to talk about, because there's a knowledge gap. If you weren't listening to Redpill, if you weren't listening to Turd Flinging Monkey, who's also one of my favorites, I know he's also one of my favorites, then you don't understand some of these terms. So what I'd like to do is just go over some of your videos titles. You have an introduction to MGTOW video, which is on your YouTube page right now. Can you generally just talk about that? And anybody who doesn't know Sandman MGTOW, you guys need to subscribe right now. Go ahead and do that right now, because you're missing out on the fundamentals. It's like trying to play baseball and somebody just threw you at shortstop and you don't know how to catch or throw. You're eating red pills without the prerequisite food. You got to eat red pills. You can't eat red pills on an empty stomach. So this is helpful. Tell us about the introduction to MGTOW. What are the most important things that would that are in the elements in that particular video, sir?
I mean, it was a long time ago, but I can kind of remember that I talked about the different levels of MGTOW. And so, when you first take the red pill, you go through situational awareness, you become aware of what's going on, but you're still kind of thirsty. You still want to go out and date. So that's usually considered like a level 0 MGTOW. And then level 1 is usually when you date, but you don't get involved in marriage, but you go into long-term relationships. And then level 2 is when you date, but you don't get involved in into long-term relationships. And then level 3, I believe, is you just completely stop dating. And then level 4 is ghosting society and escaping from society completely. So like level 3, I would say, is more like the MGTOW monk mode, and then level 4 is just escaping and basically heading for the hills.
So now we're just going to go over some terms. Explain to us, and there's like 20 of them, but I want to. This is going to be a broadcast for the ages because I want it to be out there. Explain to us the concept of true force loneliness.
Well, true force loneliness is kind of the incels before they were incels.
Mm-hmm.
And this is around 2014, 2015. I got in a bunch of arguments with them. They were just angry men they couldn't get relationships, and they just started making content. And somehow, like, a lot of people forgot about them, and then incel just showed up. But they've been around for quite some time. Incels have been around for a long time.
Yeah. And so basically, these are just guys who are dated, frustrated. They can't get the women that they want because there's always
no, it's not. They can't get any women. So it was interesting because some of them would pop up, and the biggest channel, he's like, well, guess what, guys, I'm leaving. I got a girlfriend, and he showed us his girlfriend on the channel, and then he's gone. So the whole point was they would just vent their frustrations about how bad the dating market was. Okay. And we all kind of laughed at it. We thought it was a joke, right? But we didn't think that incel would be a thing like it is today, right? Like the black pill community has been growing.
Yeah, it definitely has. So here's another concept. I want to keep it moving, and this has been thrown around like a badminton ball or something like that. Women and the wall. Can you please explain this and give it some detail? What is the wall? What is the women? The idea of women hit the wall. How did you all come up with that concept?
Well, it was. I mean, I don't really know where it comes from, but we all started talking about women getting to the point where, let's say they get to 25 or 30, and they're just not as desirable anymore. So they go out and they're looking for the men that they were able to get before, but now those men are unavailable, and they don't know what happened. So that's pretty much the wall. But the wall doesn't really exist. Women can always get men. They can always find men. They just have to lower their standards. 65-year-old women can find a 70-year-old man, and I've seen this before with my own eyes. So it doesn't exist unless they get into their like 70s or 80s and they start to really, really look like grizzled. Then you get the wall. I'd say the wall hits women when they're like 65 or 70, really, somewhere around there.
And so here's the crazy 65. Wow. Okay. So here's the crazy thing, Sandman. There's a gentleman. His name is Kevin Samuels. I don't know if you follow him.
Yeah, I know him. Yep.
Okay, but he's the first person that I've heard in the black. A man. He has consumed red pills. He's been around for a while, and I'll refer to him as the black manosphere because that's what they refer to themselves as. And just because you're black, But bottom line is, he has made a tremendous impact on the culture simply telling women to lower their expectations. If you listen to him, he says, ma'am, you have 3 kids by 3 different guys. You're 180 pounds. You are not going to be able to get what he terms a high value man or a Chad or a Tyrone. I believe that was a term that was used back in 2013. Why is it that he's been able to do that? Just telling these women the truth about themselves and their dating. How did that phenomenon happen? Don't women reject that? Like, oh my God.
I don't think it's the truth because, like, I've seen 50-year-old women marry 30-year-old men, and I've taken the photos at the wedding, and I've got the proof, right? So, when I see this, I think to myself, like, how is this even possible? But it is. So all it takes is one 180-pound woman to, that finds this perfect Tyrone, and then all the other women are going to say, well, I want that too. And then so Kevin Samuels comes in there dressed to impress, and he's not really convincing them. They don't really listen to him. They look at what their friends have done.
Well, yeah, I mean, I will say this: he has convinced a couple of women to stay married. He's convincing women to lower their standards. Because he is definitely doing that. We have an issue in the Black community. A lot of our lovely ladies, as I refer to them, they have a how would I say this? They have a very high self-esteem rate going, and they need to be knocked down a peg or two because their expectations are unrealistic. You got multiple children and multiple relationships. You're overweight, and you think you're going to get some stud who's a multimillionaire. It's cool to get a Tyrone, great, but some multimillionaire guy. We just don't see like rich Black dudes or rich anybody with just fat women. I mean, with a bunch of kids out of wedlock. We just don't see it. And we have an obesity epidemic amongst our lovely ladies in the Black community. And some of them still believe they got to fight a puncher's chance. What do you think? Why do you think that that's like that in our community? I know you're not a member of the Black community. You don't have that lived experience, but just as an outsider looking in, what are your thoughts on that?
Look, I've seen white guys get together with 250-pound Black women.
Oh, right.
So okay, so when Kevin Samuels tells these women to lower their expectations, it's flying in one ear, going out the other. He's not telling it for them. He's telling it because his audience is hearing it, and it's what his audience wants to hear.
Yeah. Okay. And so you segued into something else. Why is it that guys want to hear Kevin Samuels smack these ladies around verbally? Like, it's almost like it's something they wanted to say, but they weren't bold enough to say it or brave enough to say it. But now they got him saying it. So is that part of Red Pill rage? Is that fulfilling some inner need? Go ahead.
It's look, guys go through suffering. They've suffered through relationships, and now, if I make a video and I title it, woman suffers something, guys will tune into that. It'll get more views because they want to hear about a woman suffering. It's like they're living, they're vicariously enjoying that. They want to see women suffer, and I mean, that's a strategy what a lot of content creators use to kind of get views and get money, right? So if they're making videos of women are constantly suffering, like, Fresh and Fit is grilling these girls in their little condo they got going on there, then guys want to see that. They want to see these women being put in their place.
Mm-hmm. So, we kind of, and where does that come from? Is it because they want to see them suffer because women have made them suffer, so they're happy to see a guy do the women like they've been done? Is that, where does that come from?
It feeds into their revenge fantasy from all the women that have done them wrong.
Okay. Wow. That. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about some other more complicated concepts. You had a video out many years back called "Dried Fish Lady" versus herbivore men, and this is something that you developed from what's going on in Japan. As many of you guys, or many may or may not know, Japan's population rate is decreasing because the guys they've gone their own way. Can you explain that concept, dry fish lady versus herbivore men?
Okay, so dry fish lady is the so-called MGTOW equivalent of WGTOW, or women going their own way. Okay. And this is a woman who kind of, she doesn't really care about her like cleanliness in her house. She basically just walks around in her shoes and in her apartment, even though that's a no-no in Japan. So, she goes to the nightclubs, and she gets guys to basically, like, goes to host bars, and she gets the male hosts to entertain her and her friends. So it's a cultural thing. It's the equivalent of women going their own way, but in the West, we don't really have women going their own way. I mean, we don't really know what to call it. We haven't really identified it yet.
All right. So, and I think it's important now that I want to kind of dig into that concept of red
Oh,
pill rage.
just one thing. In
What's up?
China, they call it lying flat. So it's more like it's not necessarily a specific gendered term. It's just
Mhm.
lying flat, which means you're not. That's like level 4 MGTOW, where you're just kind of you're walking away from society and you're ghosting.
Okay.
So, but again, I haven't heard of a term that like MGTOW that the Chinese have. The Koreans have dishwashing. That came out, I think, about 3 or 4 months ago. So
Okay.
every culture seems to have its own, like it's trying to describe, um, how these things are kind of working out in their culture. Now, the Koreans are really interesting. Their men's rights movement is actually working really, really well. For
Mm,
whatever reason, they get feminists canceled from their speaking engagements. They go and they rally at speaking engagements.
mhm,
They go and complain to companies that do anti-male advertising, and they
mhm,
boycott, and then the companies change their advertising.
mhm.
So I find, like, whatever the South Korean men are doing, we need to learn from, and we need to, if the men's rights movement needs to learn from and do. Anyway, go ahead.
No, no. So there's a in the black community in the United States, especially, BGS Ibmore refers to it as a matriarchy, or basically a women-run movement. And so, for many years, I would say decades, uh, black men will our lovely ladies are considered the cash. They are the sacred cow of the black community. She can do no wrong. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the rapper from the late '90s, Tupac Shakur, but he had a song out that said, "Even if you were a crack fiend, mama, you still were a black queen, mama." And matter of fact, there are some right. There are some that even refer for years. We referred to them as queens and goddesses and whatnot. And understanding female nature, you know, I realized, oh yeah, I could see why women would allow this to happen after I start consuming red pills. Now, having gone through my red pill rage many years back, I understand what happened. You have a lot of young men, especially in the black community, they are very angry with their mothers. They're very angry with their baby mothers, their wives, their ex-wives, their sisters. We have an epidemic of red pill rage going on in the black community. What advice, or please explain what red pill rage? They've realized female nature. They've realized they've been lied to. They've realized they've been misled. They're consuming content from the manosphere. You have black men who actually feel like women, specifically black women, are their enemy. I don't mean they're ready to. Some of these guys feel as though they are their enemy. What can you explain to us about red pill rage? Just go in as much detail as you want. This is a very important conversation.
Okay, so from my discovery, there's two versions of red pill rage. So the first version you go through is you take the red pill, you learn about female nature, you digest all of this consciously. So
Mhm.
you think about it and you say, wow, hypergamy is real, and single mothers are a disaster, and all, you realize, okay, all of this stuff is true. And then what you do is you get angry because, number one, nobody ever told you about this. So
Right.
you get angry at society for not telling you.
Mhm.
Number two, you get angry at women for not telling you. And so then you start seeing this all around you, and you start getting angry because you see reality for what it is. You see the Wizard of Oz, there he is. He's dancing behind the curtain. You see him, and you're disappointed and you're angry, and you look around and tell other people, and they don't see the wizard yet.
Right.
You have to kind of tell them. So anyway, it's a conscious awakening, but there's still the other part, which is your subconscious, which is still thirsty, right? So you still want women, but your conscious mind is angry because it doesn't want women, but your subconscious wants women. So
Mhm.
there's this internal struggle where the two halves of yourself are fighting for one wants to reproduce, the other one wants to just get out of that situation. So I think that's partially where that anger also comes from. It's this conflict that's kind of within yourself. You get the Jedi, the Sith conflict. Like, there's much conflict in you, young Skywalker, right? So
How do we get over that? I mean, I know how I got over my red pill rage, but I wouldn't
okay,
advertise that for everybody. Uh,
so for
Go ahead.
me, for me personally, I got over it by going out and dating and
Mhm.
seeing more and more of this. So it just, like, imagine me like dating, and then like in real time seeing all of these behaviors and like categorizing them in my mind and being like, she's doing this and then she's trying that. And I just like, there was a subconscious part of me that just snapped. It was like, it got so angry that it was just like, I'm done. And it was this deep, deep subconscious part. And then at that moment, this is early 2016.
Okay.
My conscious and my subconscious were on the same page,
Okay.
where they were both done. And at that point I was free. So that's how I got free of not needing relationships, not even craving it anymore.
Okay.
So and that was what, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So that's almost 6 years. Is it really 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 20? Yeah, 6 years.
Is it?
And I have not had any cravings to go out and date or have a relationship or sex, anything. So, you know, again, you have to go through the first red pill rage, and then you have to go through the second. The second one, the only way I can really get to it is by going out and dating a lot of bad women. I think that's kind of where you want to go.
Is it fair to say, because I reached that same point too, I went about it different ways. I basically moved to the Dominican Republic, Colombia, and I just had swarms of women I was dealing with. And whatever language they spoke, I still saw the female nature and I recognized it for what it was. And I got a certain freedom because I realized, okay, I've been lied to. Let me change my course of action to reflect my new understanding. And I stopped being angry with them. You know, I'm like, okay, I'm no longer angry with my ex-wife because I realized she did what women do. It's like, you're not my enemy, even though we went through a horrible divorce. You're doing what women have always been able to do when they're allowed to. So what advice do you give to these young men who are listening to my page, many of them who are just now consuming red pills? What advice en masse would you give them as to how they can get over it? Because I think it's getting to a point, it's becoming dangerous to them in that they're not progressing in life.
Well, it takes time to digest this information, and then, you know, like you said, you talked to enough women where it didn't phase you anymore, and that's just something that takes time. You can't rush experience, right? So it takes time to kind of process that.
Okay. So let's dig into another. Thank you so much for that. Let's dig into another concept. You have a video called the Blue Pill Blues. We'll talk. What does that mean? The Blue Pill Blue. What is a blue pill? Because we got a red pill. Everybody knows a red pill. Some people know the blue pill.
You're gonna have to remind me of that. That was the video I did right after the red pill rage, but I can't remember what I said in the video. Right? So,
that's fine. Just tell us generally, what is a blue pill person? What does that mean? Explain that to these folks who are listening.
It's just a person that doesn't want to think about, you know, it wants to idealize women in a relationship and just fall in love completely and not think about the negatives and then just focus on the positives. And by doing that, you're giving the woman all the power, because then she can, over time, slip in negatives and control one step at a time without you realizing it, because you're so focused on the positivity and that positive feeling that you get from being around her that you're not connecting it to all the negative things that she's pushing through the goalposts later on.
Okay. All right. So now I want to go into something that, and you'd be shocked, most guys don't know what a purple pill is. Can you explain what a purple pill is?
Well, purple pill is a guy who's taken the red pill and then he decides to go back to dating because he has situational awareness with women. So now he goes back into the dating market and he thinks to himself, you know what? I can sleep with her. I can have, you know, I can love her, but I'm going to make sure that I maintain frame and control in the situation. But the problem is, this happened to me twice. So back in 2015, I dated a couple women for 3-4 months at a time.
Okay.
And then slowly, piece by piece, I deteriorated from purple pill into the blue pill side of things. Okay. And that happened not because of my conscious mind was allowing this, but because all those hormones that your body produces when you fall in love affect your behavior. And a lot of people don't realize this. So when you're in love and you're in a relationship and you got those love goggles on, you can't see reality for what it is, because your own brain is warping reality for reproduction. So I find it takes about 4, maybe 5, 6 months before you completely clear that out of your system.
I appreciate that. Do a lot of the guys who are in the pickup artist community, are they considered purple pill? Is that what category they fall under?
Yeah, they see themselves as purple pill, but a lot of them are white knighting for women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they want to be with women. They want to have those relationships. They want to be in love, but at the same time, they don't necessarily look at all the negatives where they only look at the negatives until you're in the relationship. But
Mm-hmm.
then once you're in the relationship, they don't tell you what to do once you're in it. They just tell you how to get in it.
Okay.
And that's a big problem.
Okay. All right. So look, let's do this. We've been at it for about 30 minutes. I want to give you a quick break. Give a shout out to all the people who contributed. And we're going to come back and we're going to get Sandman to really dig into feminism, i.e. MGTOW versus feminism. Which came first? Was it the chicken or the egg? I don't know. But thank you, Sandman. If you want to hold on a minute, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. I'll give you enough time to dig in here a little bit more. So you guys, I want to show a big shout out to everybody who's contributed. We'll go to a quick break. We'll be right back. Hey, if you're enjoying the content here at Dennis Sperling Unfiltered, make sure you support it by sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And also, hit that little notification bell in the corner so that you'll get notice of each and every one of our live feeds. All right, we are Hey, what's up, everybody? If you appreciate the format and you appreciate what we're doing here, then make sure you contribute to the Cash App. Make sure you contribute to the PayPal. Make sure you donate to the Super Chat. Make sure you donate to the Super Chat. And your contributions to keep this thing going. Thanks. All right, we are back with Sandman MGTOW, one of the founders of everything we know to be the Manosphere, one of the originators, came up with all these complicated concepts that many of you aren't aware of. But I want to first make sure I give a shout out to everybody who's contributed. Big shout out to MS Delta guy. Thank you so much for the contribution, man. You put a big one up there, man. And also, I want to give a big shout out to MS Delta again. He says, great interview. Lotus Eater, great collaboration. Yeah, it is great to have somebody here who can really explain these concepts to people who don't really truly understand it. Sandman, so welcome back. I want to continue on with our conversation. And it's going to get complicated. We're going to talk about feminism versus MGTOW. Which came first and why? What are your thoughts, sir?
Well, you got to talk about feminism in multiple waves, right? MGTOW, I mean, there've always been bachelors, but MGTOW really came about 2008, 2009 from Barbarossa. Right? I mean, that's when its current indoctrination or current configuration was around. I mean, it came out of, I think, 2001, 2002. There were a couple guys who created the sign, and the idea of MGTOW was originally to make men masculine and make women feminine again because of what was going on with feminism. It was kind of a response to feminism.
So these guys were more, as we would say, trad cons. They were more traditional conservatives, and they wanted their wives back. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, the men's rights movement are a bunch of boomers that, they wanted to go back to sleep and they wanted to fix all the divorce stuff so they could go back to relationships and without having to worry about getting divorce raped. That's pretty much what it was about.
What do you think? I mean, I know the answer, but what gave rise to this whole men's rights movement? Was it divorce, the upswing in divorce? Was it was it the no fault divorce? What do you think happened? Well, how did this thing happen? Because we know men adapt. So is MGTOW an adaptation to feminism and the divorce robbery that they were dealing with?
Men's rights came about because of the divorcing issues. MGTOW came about because if you look at the population pyramid, it's supposed to be a pyramid, right? So you're supposed to have very few old people at the top, and you're supposed to have a lot of young people at the bottom. But the problem is that the pyramid is turning into more of a spinning top, right? So you're getting less and less young people at the bottom, and now the generations that are after the millennials are going to be smaller and smaller and smaller. So what that does is it reduces the available number of women for the older men, because older men date younger women, right. So the older men take the younger women, and then the younger men have no one to date because all the women in their group have been taken away from them. So MGTOW was the beginnings of that population pyramid breaking down. We could still find women, but they weren't good women. So we were complaining about the quality of the women. Whereas the black pill guys who are coming up now, they're complaining about the fact that there are no women, right? So we've gone from having women and marriages and with the men's rights movement, and they wanted to fix that because of the divorce rate. And then we went into MGTOW because guys were like, well, the dating market is so bad, we're not even going to do this. And now you're going into a situation where the younger generation is getting thinner and thinner, where black pilled guys are just like, there's no one here. So anyway.
I'm not terribly familiar with black pill. Can you elaborate a little bit further on that? Just as many.
They're black. It's kind of true force loneliness, the incel community, black pill. Those are all different terms to describe it.
Okay.
So the fact in the West, there's a demographic breakdown. I mean, even black women are now having less than 2 children. I think it's like 1.79 in the United States fertility rate before COVID. So that means it's probably down to like 1.6.
Yeah.
So 2.1 is replacement. So as each generation of women gets smaller and smaller, and you have more older men above it, the older men are going to simp more because they're going to want access to those younger women.
You know, the thing is, feminism, we say it's something that happens in Western countries, but it seems to me that feminism is spreading around the world, along with cell phones and internet and YouTube. And it's just a matter of time before the conditions are so that pretty much every woman is living in a convenient, westernized, or at least modified third world country that allows for them to exercise their female nature without fear of retribution. In other words, we've conquered nature, and now women are free to do what they want to do, and they no longer fear that they won't have a man when they need a man. And so what's there to stop feminism, Sandman?
Look, women are about to take over the government. So they're about to make up more than 50% of the politicians in power within the next 10, 15 years. Wow. When that happens, they're going to have the majority of the voters. They're going to have the majority of the female politicians. You think it's going to stop at 50%? It's going to go to 60%, 70%. And then women are going to create all kinds of policies to control men because men are going to start walking away. So this is just getting started, and no one's going to really call it feminism. It's just female empowerment, whatever you want to call it. It's going to happen. So,
okay. So is our only hope trannies? is that
no, our only hope is to do what Canadian truckers are doing. Remember, truckers are men going their own way. They all have their own rigs. They sit in their trucks for hours and weeks at a time, alone, contemplating reality and existence. They're the philosophers of the modern age in some ways.
Shout out to the truckers.
Yeah, exactly. So my thing is, feminists will make a massive push for power, and all it's going to take is men. At some point, it's going to push the normal men over the edge. And then those normal men are going to say, you know what? I'm not going to fix your toilet today. You know what? I'm not going to deliver your food today. And then all that feminism stuff, empowered woman stuff, it's going to fly out the window. So I think that's how feminism dies, when the men that keep the infrastructure running just in the end decide, you know what, we're going on strike. And until things improve, and women are going to be in government, and they're going to call the army in to stop men who don't want to fix their toilets. I'm convinced of this. Look what's happening in Canada. They call the army in for a bunch of people in bouncy castles, right?
Yeah.
So
give us a timeline, because you've been great at predicting things. You actually, and I brought the tranny thing up, which is now called, hold on, I don't want to get my they thems wrong. Gender, I was a man, and now I'm a girl, and now I'm winning all these track meets for girls. You predicted that 7 years ago.
The only hope for feminists at this point is to get tranny truckers. And I actually read an article where it was like, they were trying to get more LGBTQ and trans truckers in there. And there was like a trans couple that were driving around in their truck together. Okay. So if they can do that, then they can keep, the trannies can basically keep the infrastructure running. That's what they're going to be hoping for at this point.
What do you think technology is going to do? What happens if men continue building and developing technology to the point that we're obsolete. They don't need
Well,
truck drivers anymore because they got machines and computers running trucks. What do you think?
automation is going to take women's jobs away first before it takes men's. So
Okay.
you're going to have a lot of women that are going to be, they won't be able to get their McJobs at the grocery store as
Mhm.
cashiers, as, whatever job they're doing, for minimum wage, at a retail store. The women are going to get unemployed first. Now,
Okay.
when it comes to automated trucking, Elon Musk has been trying to do that. He can't even build the truck. He's figuring out that self-driving vehicles are a lot more difficult than he thought.
Mm. Okay.
So, I'm back in 96. I remember reading articles and magazines about how self-driving was only 10 years away. Well, look, it's been, we're 15 years past that 10-year point.
Right.
So and we only have like what, level 1 or level 2 driving. I think we need to get like full autonomy is like, I think 4. I can't remember if it's the other way around, but
Right.
we're not anywhere near that point. Like, so all these people who are talking about having, technology replace us, I think it's just fear mongering. I don't think, I think the left and feminists are just kind of like, they think it's just around the corner, so they don't need men anymore. But
Mm.
when they're gonna realize, wait a minute, this technology's not here yet in 5 or 10 years, and then they're still going to be waiting, and they're still going to be talking about it being around the corner. But
You know,
in the meantime, they're showing their cards. They're playing their power cards, thinking that the technology is going to save them, but it's not.
I'm going to ask you a philosophical question. The irony that men create the technology that women use to replace us. What are your thoughts on that in the big scheme of things?
Well, I think that the technologies like, ovens and fridges and all the, indoor heating and plumbing, all of these technologies replaced women's labor, right? So women needed something else to do. Now we're getting to the point where, technologies, we're talking about technology replacing men, but we're still not there yet. But the problem is when you give women all this freedom and now they don't have to go out and bring in the chopped wood, or they don't have to go out and heat the water, or cook. Now they focus on their careers, and then they don't have children. So I think technology caused these problems, but I think the technology is also the solution. I think that for men, if we can go to surrogacy and cloning, you can clone your pet now for $50,000 or $25,000,
Right.
and the pet will live just as long as the previous version of it. So imagine cloning yourself, hiring a surrogate mother. So technically, who does that child belong to? Like it belongs to you because
Right.
it's a copy of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So,
So the only person that could come and confiscate your child away would be your mother, because she gave birth to you. So can you imagine that in the future? Instead of worrying about wives coming to confiscate your kids, you're worried about your mother coming to take away you, like a younger version of you.
that would, but female nature says she just might do it. And speaking
Yeah.
of that, there's a concept that most people don't understand it, and you're the first person that I heard coin it. Female owned group preference. Can you please explain that to folks who have never heard that concept before?
For example, if you're a woman and I criticize, I say, you know what? Women tend to complain a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The woman doesn't hear doesn't hear it as a general statement. She hears it as a specific statement saying, you complain a lot. And so she takes it personally. So whenever you criticize women as a whole, individual women will take that as a personal attack. And then so you never want to criticize women as a whole or individual women. You just want to walk away, because nothing good will come from criticism of women of any kind.
Okay. So here's another concept I want to throw out there: Refault's law. Can you please explain that to guys who don't understand what that means, if you will?
Well, it's all about the animal kingdom and how
Mm-hmm.
in the animal kingdom, the female will only have a relationship with the male if it benefits her in some way.
Right. Right.
So when you break it down like that, I mean, can it also be applied to the male as well? I mean, if you're the male and you're getting love and you're getting sex and you're getting offspring, technically you're not going to have a relationship with the woman if you're not going to get sex, if you're not going to get children, if you're not going to get anything. But then again, there are a lot of guys who still do talk to women, but they still get that female validation by talking to them. So I think Briefolt's law can kind of be applied both ways.
Okay, so for you guys who, let me break this, basically saying what Sandman is saying is that Briefolt's law in a nutshell is when a woman doesn't need you anymore, she's going to kick you to the curb. And I think that's kind of what happened in the Black community in the 1950s and 60s. I've heard you say this before, and TFM said before, Black men went their own way a long time ago. And oftentimes what happens, the Black husbands were replaced by the government. They gave them welfare and Section 8 and all these things. And the women realized, well, we could have our own house, be in control of our own house. I got the government giving me money. I don't need this man anymore. And at that point, Briefolt's law kicked in. She didn't need the man anymore, and she kicked him out. What do you think of that theory that I just threw out there?
It's not a theory. I mean, so John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and then Lyndon B. Johnson came in, and Lyndon B. Johnson introduced all kinds of welfare programs in the late 60s and early 70s, right? So you had the projects being built, and then all these Black women could basically move into these new apartments. But the stipulation was, if you want to get this welfare, you can't have this man live here. So all of a sudden, it encouraged Black women to get rid of their men and from the household, and it caused all of these problems. And Black men need to understand that was caused by a Democrat, and yet Democrats, Joe Biden is still shaming you guys, saying, you're not Black if you don't vote Democrat. It's like, I still don't understand, just
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's crazy, man, that like I talk to people from outside the Black community and they see it. And then I talk to Black men and say, we can't allow politicians to talk to us that way. That's just flat out disrespectful. No other group of men in this country or even the world will allow some politician to degrade them and talk to them like that. I've been a lifelong Democrat, not because I wanted to be, because I thought that was in my best interest. However, now, and since we've jumped into politics a little bit, I know there's an upswell of Black men who are thinking very heavily about voting non-Democrat. I don't know whether they'll register as independent or Republican, but there's only two major parties in this country, and if you're voting for someone other than a Democrat and it's not a Republican, your vote is not going to be counted. But what do you think is the answer for us? Because here's the thing. I know that the Democratic Party does not do anything for Black men. And Black women have already separated themselves as far as politics. They get stuff from the Democrats. They get crumbs from the table. They get welfare. They get these set-asides. They get these jobs working for the government. They get all this stuff. We don't get anything. So my thing is, at what point, what do you think it's going to take for these men to say, hell with it, I'm not voting for the Democrat Party? Matter of fact, everything. Go ahead.
It's already happening. I put out a video just a couple of weeks ago called minority men leaving the Democrat Party, right? Or I said Democratic, but it's Democrat Party. But the thing is, minority men are already starting to walk away. And the Democrats have a problem because now they don't know how to get them back. And all they're doing is doubling down on all this like feminist rhetoric. And it's not like, we're going to help the Black community. It's like, no, we're going to help Black women. And and so Black men are saying, what's going on? Like, why are you helping them, but you're not helping me? And you're treating me like I'm not downtrodden. Like, what's going on here? Right. So they're waking up, and then once they start voting, you're going to start to see that elections will no longer be about the left and the right. They'll be male and female. You'll see the men voting on the right and the women voting on the left. And then you're going to start to see, it'll become like I said, the candidates here in the province of Ontario that I'm in Canada, for the Liberal Party and the NDP, which are both left-leaning parties, 70%, 65% of their candidates and elected officials are female. And then say another 15 to 20% is minority male. And The rest is like a bunch of simps and cucks.
Okay.
So once those parties get into power, like it's, like men are going to start waking up and being like, wait a minute, like, what's going on here? Like, why is the province being run into the ground and we have 65% of the politicians female? Like, well, what's going on here?
Right.
Right. So this is going to be really, like, men are going to wake up that there's something wrong, and they won't know what it is at first, and then they'll realize, wait a minute, it's women enacting stupid policies. Like, for example, in New Zealand, 50% of their parliament is female. They just ban smoking for, under a specific age. So they're going to phase it out slowly. But by banning smoking, all you're going to do is create like a black market for cigarettes for people who can't get them like legally anymore. And you're going to have problems with cops. They're going to have to go out and bust up all of these illegal cigarette dealers. But at the same time, I'm sure you could buy pot. It's like, it doesn't make any sense, right?
Now, I want to change directions a little bit. So we have a movement in the in the Manosphere called SYSBM, Save Yourself Black Man. And basically, you got guys traveling overseas. And trust me, I was one of them. Had a great time in Colombia, Dominican Republic, and all those different places. But what I realized is that no matter where you go, if you're a simp or a sucker, the women are still going to treat you like a simp or a sucker. One of the things I tell my guys all the time is there's no geographical solution for an emotional problem. What I found is those men in those countries, their culture requires that they treat women in a certain way. We in the United States, especially amongst our group of Black men, because we come from a matriarchal society, it requires a cultural change for you to maintain those boundaries that those women are accustomed to. Otherwise, they'll run all over you. Case in point, I got a buddy, and he brought this beautiful woman up from Guyana, which is in South America. She was fine for about the first 10 years. And then she started hanging around Black American and white women and Hispanic women. And now she's just as Americanized as the rest of these lovely ladies. What are your thoughts on foreign women? If guys are going to deal with these women, should they keep them there or bring them, and the dangers of bringing them here, keeping them there? What are your thoughts on that whole concept?
Well, if you bring them here, obviously the culture is going to affect them. But like you said earlier, cell phones are everywhere. So,
Right.
so the culture, the feminism is going to get everywhere, and eventually it won't matter what country you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Women are going to be all empowered, and feminism is going to rule their lives, and the fertility rates are going to crash, and they're going to treat men poorly everywhere. So there is no getting away from this.
No getting away from it. Yeah, and I've explained that to the guys, and they're still hell bent on, we're going to go over here and we're going to get these foreign women. They're going to treat us better. Yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
that's because they haven't gone through that second red pill rage stage. They're still in the bargaining phase, right? So they understand female nature. They understand that the women here are not going to work out for them. So
Right.
they're bargaining. They're saying, well, if I just go over there, or if I just, find a woman with one leg that, then it can win a ass kicking contest. Like, they're trying to figure out
Right.
which women they can find, they can bargain, and eventually they'll go overseas like you did, and they'll realize, wait a minute, this isn't working either.
Yeah.
And then they'll come back all like depressed, and then they'll be like, well, you know what, I might as well just give up, right? So I think that's probably what's going to happen, and they're going to spend tens of thousands of dollars to go overseas.
They are.
To learn a very expensive lesson. That's it.
I've been there. I've done that. I realize it, and it's still all the same. Let's talk about another concept. Shaming. What is shaming, and where did that come from, and the shaming tactics that women use? What are your thoughts on that? Give us your, because that's something you talk about a lot on your videos. What do you got for us?
Well, look, women use shame as one of their primary tools to manipulate men. So, they say, oh, you're a virgin. Oh, like they'll just shame you. But basically what they're doing is they're lowering your self-esteem so that you'll do what they want. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
So it's a manipulation tactic.
Yeah.
Where does it start? Like, does it just start with your girlfriend, or does it start with your mom and your sisters and your grandma? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, personally, I've been shamed by my mother, and even as an adult, if she shames me now, I call her out on that shame, right?
How do you do that, Sandman? Give us what are the magic words? How do we begin to reverse this and shame these women and put them in their place? Tell
You
us
can't
what
shame them back. Look, you can't shame them. All you can do is call out the shame that you understand it,
uh-huh.
and thank them for their shame. Thank you for shaming me. It's not going to work. And then just walk away. And then they're like, oh, right. Like, and then they do it. And then when they do it again, you're like, you're still doing it. I know what you're doing. It's not going to work. Right. You keep telling them that over and over again. Eventually they just shut up.
So it's basically what you did was they tried to shame you and you used guilt against them for trying to manipulate you with shame. Is that
No,
basically
you
what
point it
you're
out.
saying?
Like, it's not even guilt. It's just like me pointing
Okay.
it out and being like,
Okay.
I know what you're doing. So stop.
All right, cool.
Like, grow up. Like, it's not going to work.
So how do wives do that? Give us a scenario. How do wives and girlfriends do that to
Well,
men?
I can't really, like, they'll shame a guy. They'll say, well, you're not like so and so. He's got his shit
Mhm.
together, right? And then
Mhm.
what are you gonna say, right? Like, you know, well, I'm not that guy. It's like, well,
Right.
you should be, right? Like that's what she'll probably say back to you. So, like, if she compares you to somebody that you can't live up to, how do you fight back against that? You just say, look, thank you for the shame. It's not going to work. And that's it, right? Like, and
Yeah.
she'll look at you like, what? He's pointing out, like, it's not, she's not, she can change the story 1,000 times over. Women are about how you make them feel and how they make you feel. The
Mhm.
information is irrelevant. Who
Right.
they compare you to, and guys get so caught up in the shame, and they start thinking about it, and it starts like overwhelming their brain, and it disarms them of their faculties to think.
Mhm.
If you just identify it for what it is, then you stop thinking about like what the shame, the content of the shame, and you start looking at the higher level of what it is that you're experiencing, which is the shame itself.
Right. So the thing is, and this is a concept that once I accepted the fact that women see men as a utility, I realized that basically we're their pack mule. And if you're not hauling enough weight and producing enough, then they use shame to get you to go faster. They use shame to get you to bear more burden. And so I don't take personally what women do to men anymore. I think at some point, a lot of men, when they reach a certain age, and they call it some people call it a midlife crisis, the testosterone level drops. You stop really caring so much about what women want because you don't have that sexual desire that you may have had when you were a teenager or your early 20s. Is there something to that? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it all comes down to the red pilling, black pilling process. So
Mm-hmm.
for women, the ideal situation is they gotta keep you playing the game until you pass 35 or 40 or 45 or 50,
Mm-hmm.
until you've had kids, you've gotten married, you've basically tied your life down to them. At
Mm-hmm.
that point, they don't care if you learn about the red pill because your life is all already belongs to them.
Wow.
It's all about getting guys while they're younger in their teens and 20s before they actually get in those relationships. And it was actually an article that came out yesterday. They were saying that 28% of 18 to 30-year-olds have not had sex in the last 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
So that's not even like guy going to a prostitute or having a one-night stand. That's a third of males in the United States just having no sex. What do you think that's going to do for family formation, for reproductive rates, for women getting what they want?
Yeah.
It's going to be horrible for them.
And probably a lot of frustrated and angry men who don't feel like they have any they don't have a dog in the hunt. They're not vested in the system. What do you think that effect is going to be when if you're not married? I tell my guys all the time, these women belong to the state. When you lease one or you purchase one, they make you sign a contract that says you're going to take care of them, even whether they're with you or not. And so, what happens when they can't get men to buy in and bait them with women? What happens to the state? What happens to society? What
Well,
happens to
they,
these
they
men?
need the state needs productive men. So what the state
Mm-hmm.
does, if it's Canada, for example, they bring in 400,000 new people every year. Let's say
Okay.
300,000 of those are men, and they're all thirsty and they're hungry for work and money. So
Mhm.
they go out and they do a lot of the jobs that the local guys don't want to do. I mean, look, you've got the great resignation going on in the United States. Guys are just walking away. Why are they walking away? Because they realize they're not going to be part of the system. They're not going to have a family. They're not going to get a house. They can't save up for enough for a down payment. They can't, they can't satisfy an unsatisfiable woman. So they're
Right.
just giving up. I mean, look, even for me, I'm looking at, the situation and thinking to myself, I bought some crypto, I bought some tech stocks. I've done pretty good the last few years, but I still can't keep up with the cost of housing, even though I've tripled my money with crypto.
Right. Right.
And I didn't buy like a small amount. I bought like enough, like what most people would consider a good amount.
Yeah.
So at some point, men just say, you know what, like screw this. I'm just gonna, like I'm just gonna sit at home. Say a guy has $1 million and he basically invests it in crypto, tech stocks, dividend stocks, and he's collecting $100,000, $200,000 a year on average per that. And why would he go to work? Like it
Right.
makes no sense.
And the thing is, and I've seen that occur in the Black community. I believe that the number is 51% of Black men aren't married and don't have children. And so I literally see them walking away, and that's probably, but there's still children being born, and that's largely from a small percentage of men who aren't married, because 31% of us are married. And so you have about 18% of men who are basically reproducing with a large percentage of Black women. So I see that phenomenon happening, and
But
it's
but like I said earlier, it's not reaching for replacement fertility.
right, right,
It's 1.8. Like how are you going to 1.79? How are you going? The Black community is going to start shrinking.
yeah. I
So
think, yeah, it's unfortunate. Um, the thing I want to talk to you also, because you mentioned Barbarossa, and I listened to one of his recent videos, and he does one like once a year. For those of you guys who don't know, Barbarossa is a man, and according to his video, go to his channel. It's the latest one he put up. He said he's from the Dominican Republic. He was raised
okay.
in New York. And
Sorry. So you're right. I said Puerto Rico, but
yeah,
you
yeah,
said, yeah, you corrected me. Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
So this is one of, and he was the one, and you can explain, because you better than most of us know, you were there, or you studied this, and that's why you're so prolific. Tell us about the influence that Barbarossa, who is an Afro-Caribbean or Afro-Latino man, basically a Black man or a man of African descent from the islands, what influences he had in the formation of what we now see as the modern day manosphere.
Well, if you listen to his video called "The Post-Feminist Man,"
Mm-hmm.
that's the MGTOW video. That's the male Declaration of Independence, men going their own way video. I think that's the video that kind of set it all off, set it all into
Yeah.
motion.
Post-feminist men, and
Yeah.
so go ahead, please.
Yeah,
Whatever.
that was the video that I mean, it's not very long. I think it's only like 5, 6, 7 minutes, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very profound. And then after that, him and Stardust started making content, and then I came in a little bit later, about a year or two later, and then there was also another content producer called Spetsnaz, and he was also doing really good content. And that was pretty much the end of the golden age. Like, I mean, you have Turd Flinging Monkey, and you get Better Bachelor, and you get all the other content creators now, but
Yeah.
those are the originals that kind of, that just kind of, you also mentioned Razor Blade Candy.
Right.
There's one video where he put out, it's got over 1 million views, where it's like a man and a woman dating, and they're like cartoons. That's actually
Mm-hmm.
worth checking out as well.
Okay. I've
But
actually reached out to Barbarossa, and I hope that we can have some of the originators of the manosphere, like yourself. I want them to come and basically share with this new crop of men who consider themselves red pill, but they do not have that background. They don't have that knowledge. As I said early on, back in 2013, 2014, I began consuming about, probably 15 or 20 of your videos a day. And so I was able to catch up. How long have you been producing videos? How long have you been involved in this? I mean,
so
what
I
year?
the first video I did was October the 30th, 2013, and then January 23rd, 2014, I started daily content production, and I put out a video without fail every single day since that point. So now I'm just over 8 years of daily content production.
Okay. Cool. So I want to go back to our terminology. Understand? So the term hypergamy, what does that mean? Can you explain that to us? And how did y'all come up with that?
I didn't come up with it. I can't remember where I first heard it. But hypergamy is just women always looking to monkey branch to a higher branch to find somebody else that's going to be better than the current man that they're with.
So when your high school girlfriend leaves you for the local, I don't know, local millionaire, is that an example of hypergamy? Something like that?
That's okay. Like, again, women, you get Chris Rock basically said that, men don't date down when it comes to looks, and women don't date down when it comes to money.
Okay.
So if you watch the film Titanic, you get the female character Rose, and she goes after Jack, who's a poor guy in third class. That would never happen in the real world, right? So it plays into men's fantasy about being the underdog and stealing the rich guy's girlfriend. Now, it might work if she's under 25 and she's wanting to ride the cock carousel, and Leonardo DiCaprio is a lot better looking than the guy that she was leaving in that film. So that might actually happen, right? So like a good example is Leonardo DiCaprio was at this event with Jeff Bezos and his wife, and Jeff Bezos' wife was all like smitten with Leonardo DiCaprio, and Bezos, even though he's the wealthiest or second wealthiest man in the world, he was like being ignored by his own girlfriend or what. It was hilarious to see.
Okay. So I want to, if you guys who have questions, go ahead and begin to put them in the chat room. If you have a super chat question, those are going to be the questions that we answer first. If you have questions for Sandman, go ahead, and it's great to have him here because he has the history right up here of the Manosphere. And a lot of you guys, some of the guys are saying this is their first time ever hearing the concept purple pill, right? And I'm like, I get it, because you don't know. Sandman mentioned the cock carousel. Sandman, related to, and monkey branching is something else I wanted to dig into, and that has a lot to do with hypergamy, the cock carousel, monkey branching. If you want to
use the term rooster roller coaster, because cock carousel seems to be like attacked everywhere on YouTube. You'll get videos.
Rooster roller coaster.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So it's official now. We're going to replace the term the CC with rooster roller coaster.
Yeah.
All right. You heard it first here. Rooster roller coaster is the new term for the CC, because you'll get your platform demonetized. So you heard it from Sandman first, right here on Dennis Sperling Unfiltered. Explain to us what monkey branching is. And I know you already kind of talked about hypergamy, but how does that work? And why do women feel justified in doing it? Isn't that wrong? I mean, that's just wrong.
No, but look, it has nothing to do with morality. It has everything to do with genetic survival, right? So like if you're a woman and if you breed with a stronger, taller, fitter male, it increases the odds that your offspring will make it to the next generation. It's just a reproductive strategy, right? So I don't take it personal when a woman leaves some poor schmuck for his like rich best friend. And I've seen this. I've seen a man who his best friend stole his wife, and then the guy killed himself. Like, what are you going to do? Right? Like, it happens. And, and everyone's like, oh, it's so horrible. He shouldn't have killed himself. It's like, well, why did this happen? Because she monkey branched to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. So who do you blame? I blame biology. It's like, you gave her, she got the opportunity to leave him for somebody better. So she took it. Right. Yeah. If you're with a girl and she's like, if you pay attention and you're out with a girlfriend, she's talking to other guys. She's not talking to other guys because she finds them interesting or she's trying to be social. She's trying to figure out if they're better than you and if she got an angle on them so she can leave you and go with one of them.
Man, but Sandman, do you see how revolutionary that sounds to guys who were raised believing that women are sugar and spice and everything nice? Do you
You
see
know,
how? Go ahead. You
look,
see how that?
when I remember being in this position, like seeing my
Right.
girlfriend talk to guys,
Yeah.
having no fucking idea that she was trying to figure out if she could get a better deal with them. And I'm standing there next to her. She's talking to these guys, and I'm just like, whatever, not realizing, wait a minute. Like after I got out of relationships entirely, all this stuff started clicking. And I was like, wait a minute, she was doing that because of that. Because that's what I would be doing if I was a woman. See, I got it. I put myself in their point of view and thinking, okay, I've got all these reproductive strategies, what would I do?
Right.
And then when I see women behaving in ways that make rational sense from their point of view,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, it upsets you at first, but then over time you're like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. So, you know, they use men for emotional tampons. Like, it doesn't
Right.
matter. Like, you're not involved in their relationship. Like, your mother might use you as an emotional tampon. You know,
Yeah.
you might be like, Mom, I gotta go. And she's like, no, stay. I gotta talk. It's like she needs to get all her crap onto you because that's going to make herself feel better. Anyway, remind me where we were in the conversation. I just
No,
went
no,
off.
it's flowing, man. It's cool. So we were talking about these ladies and their monkey branching and how unethical that seems. But you're basically explaining to them the same thing that I explained to them. It's nature. It's nothing to take personal, which is why I tell these young men that women are not your enemy. I tell black men, black women are not your enemy. They're exercising their female nature. This is what they do. Don't take it personal. Just adapt. Period.
Well, here's the thing. Like, if it's not, if it's just nature, then nature is your enemy. Think
Right.
about that.
Right.
So, for example, you know, I was thinking about, like, I would brought up the term, that cloning idea, right? Because I thought
Mhm.
about it and I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense, right? So you can't confiscate your own kid if the kid is technically you, right? So I thought about that cloning idea, and then I got further into the whole nature of cloning, and what I realized was, imagine you had Tupac, right? And Tupac was murdered, but imagine they were able to clone him and give him, you know, a similar upbringing and allow him to kind of develop his musical talent again as another like version of himself.
Right.
Imagine you could do that with like a Nikola Tesla, or you could do that with, imagine if we could like clone Elon Musk.
Mhm.
And so when Elon died, there was another clone of him, like at the age of 35 or 40, that could start, you know, build on his legacy that he had already built, right? So if the brain is similar, or if it's the same brain, or, you know, similar, if you give it the similar upbringing, then technically, um, you can clone great men, and you could have a reproductive legacy, and you could build on one lifetime on another. So nature is our enemy because nature only produces geniuses every so often. But if we
Mhm.
could clone geniuses with high IQs, then we could advance civilization a lot quicker. And I thought about this like 2, 3 days ago, and I was like, holy shit. Like, because there's an article about this man, he found this dog, and he rescued this dog, and the dog has this very special ability to smell metal in the ground. So
Uh,
the dog can smell copper or gold or silver in the ground, and he runs a mining company. And the dog would go over to where the gold is, and it would smell that area, and they would drill there, and they'd pull out gold, right?
mhm.
So this dog was getting older, and they didn't know what to do. So he's like, I'm going to clone this dog, because they couldn't find a similar dog, because this quality that the dog has is very rare. So they cloned, and they created 2 more copies of this dog. So I'm thinking to myself, why can't we do the same with humans? Why can't we have genius humans cloned? You
You know,
know,
I think the capacity would be there, but there's a nature versus nurture aspect. I don't know Elon Musk's particular life pattern, what he's experienced, what trauma he's experienced, what pushes him, what drives him. Yeah, there's a natural capacity, but some of that often goes unexercised. We see a lot of men who have children. Their progeny are half the men that they should be. You know,
but
because they just don't have the same hunger, the drive, the human experiences.
But their children are not them. The children are a combination of genes that they might have had from parents and grandparents and way back, as well as the parents from the wife.
Mm-hmm.
So the genes from the wife. So first of all, you're not getting a perfect copy. You're getting like 1/10 or 1/20th the copy.
Mm-hmm.
And then number two, like you said, they're not going through the same hardships, trials, and tribulations. But if you could copy the exact same person, then you would be a lot closer to replicating that greatness.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but you still have to put them under the same conditions that would then drive them to those same outcomes. I would think they would need to suffer, experience.
That's a given. But I mean, that can be, if you were raised a certain way, you could say to yourself, well, if I have this kid and it's a clone of me, and I make sure he's bullied. I make sure he's he dates really bad women. He makes sure he's been like attacked from all, you make sure all these all these bad things happen to him in his life.
Right.
Then he's going to get teased for being a clone. That's check mark number one in the box, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just do all of these things, like go to school and pick him up, and they'll be like, "That's your dad. He's your copy of your dad." So they can just make fun of him, like no end, right?
Yeah.
So that's the trauma right there, right? So and then the kid's not gonna have technically a mother because grandma is his real mother, but grandma's like 80. But it's a weird kind of situation. I don't know. I'm speaking hypothetically here.
Yeah,
but
I know, and I appreciate you going there because we can dig this, separate this out, and get where you're going from. But it also teaches these young men how to actually think about it, because a lot of times they don't see two men who come from two different worlds who are actually able to communicate logically and understand each other. So this is a lesson also for them. But here's the other thing. I want to get back to our points because I know I don't have you here all day. Let's talk about the term Nawalt. Not all women are like that. Can you explain that to these folks, these brothers, these men here? Explain that concept to them and where that came from.
Okay, so men want the unicorn. They want the woman that's not like all the other women out there,
mm-hmm.
right? That's the Nawalt. And the problem is you can't cheat female nature, right? Mm-hmm. So now I'm still trying to find the Nawalt. And actually, I'm still looking for this person, and not for relationship wise, but for like I'm looking for a muse, somebody that inspires me to be creative. And because I've realized sex taps my creative energy, it disappears, it's gone. Mm-hmm. So I can't write, I can't think. Sex, the abstinence from sex recharges my ability to be creative. Okay. So I think that's very important to kind of keep in mind. So the more sex you have, the more happy hormones you have flowing through your body, the less productive you're going to be because you're just going to be like doped up on a drug all day. That's what it comes down to. So my story with the Nawalt, she's a YouTuber. She's got a channel. She worked about 50, 60 hours a week on her channel. She went through the similar upbringing as me. She's been a freelancer her whole life. Mm-hmm. She has an art degree. She worked in photography for 10 to 15 years. She has a travel YouTube channel. She's a woman going her own way. Like she hasn't had a relationship in a long time. So, she's also most likely on the spectrum. So for me, I'm trying to understand myself better through the female version of me. I'm not saying that she's an Nawalt. I'm just saying that I'm trying to understand myself by trying to see somebody that's got all of the similar qualities that I have. Regardless of whether they're male or female, this person has gone through a very similar life that I have. Like a lot of the suffering and the hardship and the hard work and, stress and all this, she's gone through the same types of stuff and she's had a similar mindset.
One of my guys, Wrench Turner, says, "Don't fall for it, Sandman. Don't fall for it."
Look, I've got an introduction. So I'm going to start, I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to send her an email. One of her friends contacted me. We had a chat and he knows her personally. So he talked to her and I'm going to talk to her. So we'll see what happens. But I'm just trying to figure out, like, there's a certain energy that this person puts out, that her energy is not conducive of a relationship. You can't have a relationship with this woman because she's too busy working on her own thing. And I'm too busy working on my own thing too.
But maybe that's your relationship. Maybe that's I mean, nobody has any rules to what relationships are anymore. Maybe her being too busy, you being too busy, you guys relating on some level at some point, that's your relationship. It's different than others, but
the thing is, it's like having, okay, it's like almost like having a relationship with yourself. So the way I look at it, you have your conscious and your subconscious mind, right? So you've got the version of you that's talking right now, and then you have the version of you that's kind of working in the background. The two of you have to get along to kind of have a good, meaningful life, fulfilling life. When you get together with somebody else, there's a conscious and an unconscious version of them. So in a relationship, there are technically 4 people that all have to get along. You know, your conscious and your unconscious have to get along with her unconscious and her conscious, right? So,
right.
So that's why relationships don't tend to work, because there's one side will always, one of the 4 will never agree, and it'll break it apart.
All right, cool. So look, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Is maybe you'll be hanging up your boots at some point, right?
No, it's not going to happen. Like the most that'll happen is like
breaking news.
Sorry,
I said breaking news here on Dennis Sperling Unfiltered, man. But go ahead.
No, I just think it's. I'm just trying to understand female nature, male nature, human nature in a completely different way. I'm trying to figure out what makes us tick, what makes it, like, you know, like we talked about the cloning thing.
Right.
Is it nature? Is it nurture? Is it, you know, like how much of one of those things is it, right? Like imagine if you had 5 clones of Michael Jordan, would one of them become just as good as the original Michael Jordan?
Right. Okay. I get it. So let's we'll dig into some more concepts here. How are you doing? You want a quick break, or can we continue forward?
No, we can go if you want.
Okay, great. So I want to ask you a question about and you mentioned this. What is a shit test, Sandman? Where'd that come from?
I don't know where it came from, but the way to pass a shit test, a shit test is basically a woman asking you a question and trying to get an answer that, like, she'll ask you, like, does this dress make me look fat, right?
Okay.
That's a shit test, right? So no, your way you're supposed to pass that test is by saying, no, you make that dress look fat. That's how you pass the shit test, right? So she's asking you a question, like if you say, no, it's not making you fat, then she knows you're bullshitting her and she loses respect for you. Right.
Oh, wow. You got to dig into that. You got to dig into that, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of guys out here who tell women what they want to hear, and these male feminists and these women don't respect them. Please dig into that a lot deeper, Sandman.
Yeah, but you basically nailed it right there, right? Like it's just it's a question where if you respond in the correct, polite way, they will lose respect for you. But if you respond in a negative way, or a way that's more like if you defend yourself, like for example, you know, you go to a restaurant and, you know, the woman's like, she's expecting you to pay the bill, and you're like, no, we agreed to go halves, right? And then she's like, well, I don't have the money. It's like, well, you'll be washing dishes then for the rest of the night, won't you? Right? Like that's you passing the shit test.
How do you get to the point where you can say stuff like that, Sandman? Like, no, men don't want to say that because they don't want to have to deal with the repercussions of saying that. How do you get the gumption to do that? Where's that come from?
The problem is you can't say that if you're emotionally involved in loving the woman, because it's going to feel wrong to say that. But if you don't say it, she'll lose respect for you. So you're torn, and odds are eventually you'll eventually start failing the shit tests.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen guys who refuse to fail shit tests. Like a woman will do something stupid, and the guy will just start yelling back at her and like putting her in her place. And they've been married for 10 or 15 years. And I'm looking at, and his heart rate is probably racing, and his stress level is shooting through the roof. She's going to put him in an early grave. And I look over at the guy's dad, and the guy's had a stroke and he's in a wheelchair, right? Because his mother was doing that to his father, right? And now his wife is doing it to him.
So it's the constant back and forth of marriage. Like, you know, like the guys from the 50s and the 40s, we think they had it better, but they were constantly having to put these women in their place, constantly check them, constantly deal with the shit test.
But
That just ran up their blood pressure and made them have strokes. Is that basically what you're saying?
yeah, look, it's I came up with this. It's the term. It's the idea of the simp, the gimp, and the pimp. Okay.
Oh, there it is. Let me hear it. Simp, the gimp, and the pimp. Go ahead.
Okay. The simp is me and I when I get in a relationship. I'll fail all the shit tests from the start. I'll just do whatever a woman wants. That's why I don't get involved.
Yeah.
So that's the simp. The
Okay.
gimp is the guy who's in the middle and he's standing up, but his heart rate is blowing up,
Mm-hmm.
and he's gonna die young from like heart disease and high blood pressure and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna get a stroke. He's gonna stroke out. That's the gimp. The pimp brings out his pimp hand. He doesn't give a shit. He just doesn't care.
Okay.
Right. So like I look at my like relationship with, I've got a brother, I got my father and me.
Okay.
My father is the pimp, my brother is the gimp, and I'm the simp. Right. So that like we all deal with women in a completely different way. Right. Like my dad might say, you know, my mother might say, I'm gonna leave if you don't do this, and my dad will say, well, there's the door, you can leave anytime you want.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll just shut the conversation down right there. Right.
Yeah.
So that's like, and I never would have done that. I never would to this day, because you have to be disconnected from your emotions to do that. And my problem is I feel things way too deeply. Like I get too emotionally connected with people and things, and it overwhelms me.
Wouldn't that be a good thing though? I mean, is it a bad thing to be disconnected from your emotions? So you're so unempathetic that you're willing to basically check a woman and put her in a place at all times. Hell no, this, that, and the other. What does that do to you as a human being?
Well, that's the thing. Like if you're trying to be a creative person and you're trying to be connected to your emotions and feelings, and you're trying to be an artist, you have to be connected to your emotions.
Right.
So for you to disconnect, like I can't disconnect because it's like death for me. You know,
Right.
I can't. For me, it's like disconnecting from how I feel is not an option.
Okay. Okay. So it's almost like in order to be in a marriage and to put a woman in her place and pass the shit test, you have to be like less than human. You got to stonewall your emotions and be this tough, stoic guy and kind of be like our fathers were back in the 1940s and 50s. I don't think that allows for us to truly examine our humanity. And I think
No, it
that's
doesn't. Absolutely not. Right. So and that's a problem. Like, you know, how can you actually feel anything? How can you create something? That's why a lot of the best writers and artists, they're single. You can't do that. Like your emotions they belong to you. They don't belong, like people pushing my buttons. Like I will literally snap if people push my buttons, like emotionally. I can't tolerate it.
Okay.
Because I can see what they're doing, and I get angry, and I get agitated, and I literally have analysis paralysis. And then I see these guys who just like let anything slide off their back, and I'm like, yeah, but they look dead inside. Like you look at them, and they're just like nothing will affect them. Nothing.
Right. Wow.
Is that masculinity, or is that like what is that? Like I don't know how to describe that.
And, I think that's why some of like Tesla and even David, he wrote some of his greatest psalms in isolation in the wilderness. I think men who, when you are alone, you're a lot more creative because you don't have that conflict going on. So you're free to be whoever it is you need to be to create whatever works. I think that makes sense. What are your thoughts? And we're gonna wrap up soon here. And I know I got you for more time, but this has been great. And I wanna present anybody who has an opportunity to. If you have questions, go ahead and ask Sandman now. You can ask him in the chat room. But let's talk about the big one. And I've been saving one of the best ones for the end here. The sexual marketplace. Tell us about this sexual marketplace value, how you gauge someone's sexual marketplace value, specifically women, how women gauge men's sexual marketplace value. Go ahead and just dig into that. What is go as be as elaborate as you want to be with the explanation.
Well, you look at the black pill community, they believe that the majority of the sexual value in the marketplace has to do with your looks.
Okay.
So, and I tend to agree with them. You know, it is what it is. So if you've gotten the right genes at the right point, you know, you can boost yourself. Like say you're a 6 or a 5 or a 6, and you go work out and
Right.
you know, you take care of yourself. You might get up to like a 6 or 7,
Mhm.
you know, 7.5. You can with enough work, you can kind of boost yourself and go up. You know, get a good job, career. You might get like 7.5, 8. You know, but when it comes to women, all they have to do is learn how to apply makeup, lose a little bit of weight. You know, they don't actually have to work on themselves as much as we do. We have to like to get up higher. Like, what's the difference between going to the gym and putting on makeup, right? Like,
Mm.
it's like you got to go for an hour a day, and you got to, you know, you got to put a lot of work in.
Okay.
You know,
So let's insert money into that. What is, because I got it broken down into sexual looks, social status, and money. How does money play into sexual marketplace value?
well, money,
As far as men are concerned.
like you said, looks are the most important. I'd say money and social status are probably tied for second.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, for women, same thing. Like looks are number one, but social status does not really matter. Men don't really care. I think men care more about financial status now because of the cost of living.
Okay.
But like, I've never dated a woman. Like, oh, because look at her friends, they're great. I'm gonna date her because she's got great friends. It doesn't
Right.
work that way. Or like, yeah, her friends respect her. I'm turned on. It's not gonna happen, right?
Okay. So
So
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
there's, you know, the sexual marketplace. It's just another thing that if influences it massively, like I said, is the demographic problem, right? So you're getting a lot of less younger women, and you're getting a lot of older men taking those younger women and leaving
Mhm.
less men down below in
Right.
you know, that spinning top of a pyramid population pyramid. So that
Mhm.
means the men are going to have to up their game to compete with older men that have more money.
Okay.
So it's skewing the sexual marketplace in women's favor. So by women having less kids, it gives them the advantage because now they have more men to pick from, because the population pyramid is getting narrower and narrower.
So we got a question from MS Delta Guy. Big shout out to MS Delta Guy. Thank you so much for the contribution. Sandman, how is this gender war going to end? How do we stop the war against men?
You can't stop it. You just have to let it play out. And like I said, you're going to have two political parties. The right wing party will be mostly male. The left wing party will be mostly female. And you know, you're going to start to see a power struggle in society for dominance between the masculine and the feminine energies. And in the end, it'll be the men that get, you know, the men that fix the toilets and the sewers and drive the trucks that are just going to say enough, and then they're going to walk away from all the female politicians and their crazy demands.
Why is it that men would side with women in the first place in a war between men and women? Explain that. How does that even happen? We're
Why do
working.
men?
Go
Why
ahead.
do men what?
Why would men side with women and oppress other men who are trying to gain rights for men? I guess that has to do with male nature, but I mean, are we just built to be simps? I mean, are we just, why would
Well,
we even do that?
those men want female validation, right? They want female attention and validation, and the possibility of those women touching their pee-pee, right? So
Right.
that's what they're doing. They're just, even if they're not going to get, they're hoping that they might get some validation. They're hoping that they might get some attention, or maybe they're gay males that are allies with females, right? So the
Mhm.
left kind of plays off of that as well,
Okay.
right? Or maybe they're black men who are siding with the left because they think they might be able to get women that have, you know, white women with higher sexual marketplace value. I don't know, but I think it's a combination of all of those things.
We, you know, and you brought up the black community. We have a lot of black men on YouTube who push back against other black men who are basically calling black American women on their shit tests that the things that they're doing to black men. We're calling them out for the single mother rate. We're calling them out for some of the treatment that we receive. And I don't understand why men, and we're asking a man question. I mean, is validation that important to men?
Absolutely, because the guy wants to know that he exists. He wants to know that women find him sexually attractive.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to know that women will give them attention.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you know, for a while, like after I stopped dating, I would still seek out female validation, and I would still talk to women just because it was nice to have a woman to talk to.
Right.
But then eventually it got annoying, and then I stopped talking to them entirely. And now I just want to get away from them. So,
All right.
you
Well,
know, I didn't need the validation anymore.
well, I get it. I think we're all stuck in this trap, man. So what's next for Sandman? I mean, when is the movie coming out? When is the when
Look,
is it?
I wanted to make a movie. I asked Paul Proteus. He's now dead. I asked Vention MGTOW. He's now
Right,
dead. The MGTOW community, no one else is showing their face. The
right.
MGTOW community has shrunk. I'm thinking maybe go through all my videos and compile all of this information
Mm-hmm.
and write a book with all the funniest and most insightful content.
Right.
That's a possibility. I'm thinking at about the 10-year mark, which is about 2 years from now, I'm going to probably take it down to 6 days a week,
Okay.
and then maybe write, or maybe just relax for a bit. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm probably not going to stop doing what I'm doing. I might take that day and also work on my virtual sex system. So that's another thing that I'm working on. So that's, you know, like I don't think that MGTOW philosophy will free men at this point. I think we need MGTOW technology. I think we need technology that will give men access to sex without actually having to go out and put the work in to get sex.
How will history remember the founders of the Manosphere, the MRMs, MGTOW like yourself, Barbarossa, TFM? How will history know who you are? And we don't know who you are. I'm not asking you to reveal your face or anything.
No, look,
How will we know?
look, I don't think, unless one of us does something absolutely incredible, like if I pull it out that virtual sex system, history
Mm-hmm.
will remember me regardless of the manosphere and all this kind of stuff. Like, look at it this way. There, you know, I've got a book of authors from Shakespeare's time,
Mm-hmm.
and in there's all kinds of stories from the great writers from his time, but nobody remembers a single one of them. The only person they remember is Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And he's the only one that's taught in high schools because he was the most prolific, and he was he basically created a good formula and a good storytelling. And it didn't matter what all the others did. They're going to be, you know, dumped in the backseat of history.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, like, a lot of the MGTOW and MRA guys, they've already been erased from history. No one remembers them, you know, except for a handful of people that kind of used to watch their content.
Right.
Like, you probably lose track of certain content producers, and then, like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I remember that person. Like 5 years later, you're like, oh, I remember. Where did they go? Where's their content? Their channel's gone. The content is gone. There's nothing there. So, you know, that's the problem. Like, a lot of these guys will never get the light of day. No one will ever learn anything about them.
Yeah. I think the person that a lot of people, they give Tom Leykis a lot of credit. I don't know. I think he's still around. I know he's not on radio anymore, but for a while, I think he had a YouTube channel. Where is this going? I mean, this thing that you and so many others started, you know, so many years back, you, Barbarossa. I mean, as you sit back and look at this thing that you created as it grows and expands across the world, what are your thoughts as one of the original progenitors of Redpill content? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's definitely had an impact.
Mm-hmm.
It's still too soon to kind of see what that impact is going to be long term.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, like, we're talking, you know, like, I know personally that I've inspired dozens of new creators to create content, and those dozens of creators have had now, you know, some of them have had, you know, that had just as many views as, you know, or get 10 million views a month. So, and those content creators influence other content creators.
Right.
So, you know, like Better Bachelor and Think Before You Sleep and TFM, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they credit me with basically inspiring them to
Right.
create content. So, you know, you know, so what I'm saying is, like it's this knock-on effect, right? Like, you know, if Barbarossa and Stardusk hadn't did their content, I wouldn't have done mine. And then if I hadn't done mine, then all these other content. So it's like throwing a stone in a pond. It ripples out. You know, you don't know the ultimate effect, right? You might not even be around by the time you see it.
What is your advice, or I guess message to a lot of men who say, well, I've been doing this since 2005, 6 or 7. I'm an originator of the Manosphere. What would your message be to them?
Well, where's the content? Like, where are their videos? They didn't put anything out.
Yeah.
I mean, look, going your own way has been around for thousands of years, right? It's just putting it into words and like figuring out like what it means and how it can actually help people. That's a different story.
Yeah. I tell young men, like, look, please take my content and incorporate it. Tell people you came up with it. I don't care. I just want to do it because I wish I had somebody like me 20 or 30 years ago saying these things to me. So I could adjust to society better.
But would you really like think about it this way? Like we talked about lack of hardship. So
yeah.
all of the hardships that you went through for 20 years made the person that you are today. If somebody gave you all the answers up front, you wouldn't have suffered. If you hadn't suffered, you wouldn't be the strong person that you are now.
But damn, Sandman, I mean, like, why would we put ourselves through that? Like, if you got the magic, if you got the map that tells you how to get straight to the X that marks the spot where the gold is buried, wouldn't you want that ahead of time as opposed to fumbling around in the dark in the wilderness, all the trauma you have to suffer? I mean, wouldn't that be better? And I guess I have 3 sons, and I constantly ask myself, is it too soon to explain to them the nature of female nature? Do I want to ruin it for them? Do I want them to always be looking at women with a side eye? You know, do I want them to be able to fall in love head over heels? Because it was great, that euphoric feeling, but then there's the come down off it. Then when reality hits in, and you know, I say this to say there's a lot of young men in the Redpill community, a lot of young men in the Manosphere, they're suffering from this anger because they haven't consumed their red pills with life experiences and food.
Well, here's the thing. You can't have bittersweet without the bitter and the sweet, right? It's your life you can't just be sweet all the time, or you're gonna like keel over from like diabetes, right? This is the problem. So when you talk about young guys, like I've talked to a lot of young guys and their teens. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me.
Bless you.
So I talk to young guys and they go, I learned all this Manosphere stuff. Now I don't want to date and I'm 19 years old. Help me. What do I do with my life? It's like, the first thing I say is go out and date. And they're like, but I don't want to. These women are horrible. It's like, yeah, but you can't go your own way from nothing. You have to go your own way from something.
Okay. You guys heard it. Sandman said you can't go your own way from nothing. Wow.
You have to look. You have to date, right? So there was the John Anthony's pickup artist guy. He was attacking MGTOW the other day, or like a few weeks ago or months ago, and he said, "Oh, these MGTOWs, you can't live your life as a monk. You have to." And I'm like, I agree. I totally agree with this guy. Like, and that was his biggest criticism of MGTOW. So obviously he didn't understand that you can't go your own way unless you go your own way from something. Like, it's just not gonna happen. So
that's really balanced and great advice. I don't think people truly understand what MGTOW is and what the philosophy is. Going your own way is going your own way. There's no specific directions for it. There's some principles and there's some lessons that can be learned from others' experiences. There's some terminology. But at the end of the day, going your own way is men making decisions for themselves. As I say, you're free, you know.
And like I said, like if you're in your teens and early 20s, you're dating, you're not going to have a catastrophic marriage breakup or a divorce, or, you know, you're not going to get, you know, you're not going to have your life ruined. Like odds are you're not going to get her pregnant at that point. So the younger you are and you start dating and learning female nature at that point. And then maybe when you're in your like early to mid 20s, then you start to like figure this stuff out a little bit here and there. But like if you destroy, if you tell yourself all the secrets to the story, then the story loses its mystery, and then all of a sudden, like, you become kind of jaded about reality, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well,
when do you tell? This is a big dilemma. Like, when do you tell a guy? Do you tell him, when he's in his teens? Do you tell him when he's in his 20s? Do you tell him after he's been divorced and had a couple of kids so he can add to the gene pool? I don't know. Like, these are all, like, like, I wish I could go back and tell myself, but then I wouldn't be myself. I'd be somebody
right.
else.
Yeah, it's a quagmire, and again, as a father of young boys, I find myself pointing out to them female nature as it occurs, and I don't necessarily know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, you'll find out, and then you'll be able to tell everyone.
All right. Well,
And then people will be like, "Oh, yeah, you said that. Okay, so now we know what happens, right?"
All right, man. Thank you so much, Sam, man. It's been great having you here. What else would you like to add before you leave? How can they find you on your channel? Are there any products that you have? Your books, T-shirts, mugs, whatever. How do they track?
I mean, I'm not gonna like pimp my, or like shill my like T-shirts and stuff. But
Okay.
look, like, if people want, the best thing to do is go to my YouTube channel and suggest a topic, and then I'll cover a topic of their choosing. Or I also do coaching calls. So
Okay. Cool.
for $45, I basically do a hour-long coaching call. Usually go for about an hour and a half, and I basically, that way I can talk to people personally one-on-one.
Okay.
It's it's a lot more, like, a lot more valuable, because I get people coming in and they want to deal with their personal finances. They want to deal with, like, certain women that they have to deal with in their life, or they just want, like, advice on crypto, like that. Those are the types of things that I typically talk about.
Well, Sam, man, thank you so much. I certainly appreciate having you here. It's been an honor. I've listened to you for years. You've been very helpful for me in my own life, and as a professional, even dealing with jury duties, and dealing with human beings and judges and female judges. It helps me tremendously dealing with clients. So the red pill philosophy, MGTOW philosophy, is not something that's just related to love relationships. It helps generally with all relationships. So I don't know if you know the extent of that your work, the effect of your work, but it has been great in so many people's lives. So thank you so much for your hard work, Sam, man.
No problem. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. And can you come on? How do you end it? Can we get a cheers?
So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right, man. Big shout out to Sam, man. Hit a W put the W in the chat room for Sam, man. Thank you so much, Sam, man. That's been eye-opening. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick break, and I want you guys to I'll open up the chat room. We can talk a little bit. We got some time left. It's been very interesting. I hope you've learned a lot. I want you guys to tell me what you learned. That's what this is about. You listened. You heard one of the originators of the Manosphere. All this red pill philosophy. You hear all these people taking credit for things that they didn't invent, that they don't truly understand. And so what I want you guys to do is join in. The link is in the chat room. I'm putting it in here now. As you guys know, I'm at my office, but I made a special time to accommodate Sandman. So I want you guys to make sure you come in, chime in. Let's hear what you got to say. What are your thoughts? Have you learned something new? The link is in the chat room. We'll be right back shortly. Make sure you chime in. I want to hear what you guys have to say. We'll be right back. Hey, what's up, everybody? If you appreciate the format and you appreciate what we're doing here, then make sure you contribute to the Cash App. Make sure you contribute to the PayPal. Make sure you donate to the Super Chat. It's only you and your contributions that keep this thing going. Thanks.
The ongoing pandemic and its emerging variants have become urgent. Building the most powerful immune system using all natural ingredients is critical. VK Platinum and VK Boost are formulated to deliver a broad spectrum of over 7,000 nutrients, antioxidants, phytonutrients, key amino acids, and active enzymes, including the highest levels of all natural vitamin C, which optimize the cellular capacity to destroy pathogens. And now joining the VK Platinum team includes Flush Me Out of THC, Sexmate for men, Silent Flowers for women, Lean and Clean for digestive health, Bulgorge for male prostate health, and 10X Boost Optimal Botanical Nutrition Mineralization. To build the most powerful immune system immediately and overall nutrition, go to PlatinumVK.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? If you appreciate the format and you appreciate what we're doing here, then make sure you contribute to the Cash App, make sure you contribute to the PayPal, make sure you donate to the Super Chat. It's only you and your contributions that keep this thing going. Thanks. Hey, if you're enjoying the content here at Dennis Sperling Unfiltered, make sure you support it by sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And also, hit that little notification bell in the corner so that you'll get notice of each and every one of our live feeds. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions. I appreciate it. Let's keep it going. Donate to the Super Chat. Donate to the PayPal. Donate to the Cash App. It's your contributions and your donations that'll cause for this platform to grow. Let our voice be the voice, the preeminent voice in Black America. All right. What's up, you guys? I'm back. So, look, I want to hear what you guys have to say. What do you think? I hope you learned something. I'm broadcasting from my office here. We heard of a lot of names. We heard Tom Leykis. We heard TFM. We heard about Barbarossa. And I encourage all of you young men to go check out Barbar. Now, he's been around since 2008. And Sandman gave us post-feminist men. Now, here's the thing. That is the founding of what is called Redpill philosophy. So everybody else came lately. They just popped up 6-7 years ago, and they don't know about MRM, men's rights movement, and they just don't know. There's nothing wrong with it, but a really good way to understand someone's depth of knowledge is to ask them in-depth questions. Basically, what you saw me do is I ran down a laundry list of different terminology and questions, and Sandman dug deep into those concepts to help us understand. I think it's good. I think it's important that if you're going to begin to develop yourself as a man and you using these red pills, this red pill knowledge, you should do it from a base of, you should go to the source. So that said, let's make sure you go ahead and listen to Sandman's videos. I put a lot of links in the description section so you guys can understand. But anybody who comes in, come on in. Let's hear what you got. Hit the W button. Let me make sure you guys are still here. We got 170 people in the chat room. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you contribute to the Super Chat, the Cash App, and the PayPal. In addition to that, hit the W button. Hit the number 1 button. Let me know you're here. I want to give a big shout out to my guy, MS Delta. Thank you so much. All other folks who contributed, there's been so many. Let me see who else we got in here. Greg O, he said, great conversation. And I hope you guys appreciate that. You know, something Sandman said that I'm going to have to think about myself. The Black Manosphere and the Manosphere in general, you know, it's the same thing, because for the most part, men are going through the same things. Yes, there's some slight cultural differences, but because of Western society, not only will Black men and white men in America be going through the same things, but you're also going to have men in Asia, men in Africa, men in Europe, men in South America. They're all going to be dealing with the same female nature. You can't escape it. What did Sandman say? You can't cheat female nature. And another couple of things he said: the gimp, the simp, and the pimp. I'm gonna have to write some of that down. And also, what did he call it? The rooster. I have to write some of this stuff down. Oh my God. What did he say? The rooster. I forget what it's called now. But you guys come in. I want to hear what you have to say. The link is in the chat room. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Did I miss any questions? Should I have them come back? Who would you like me to bring on next? I'm thinking about, a voice for men. I'm also thinking about Barbarossa. I've reached out to him. What do you think? Yeah, that's right. The rooster roller coaster. That's what Sandman called it. So instead of referring to it as the cock carousel, tell everybody to refer to it as the rooster roller coaster. That's good stuff, man. That's a creative mind. But you guys, if you want to come in, come in. Otherwise, you know, we can kind of call it a day on this thing. I think it's, I'd like to get back to work actually. But, you know, I wanted to make sure you got your time's worth, your money's worth. I've been working on this for several weeks now, so it's good to have him in here. Yeah, I think so. I think it's been great conversation, very enlightening. I agree with that. It was good to hear. It was good to hear Sandman's take on the direction of the Manosphere, his thoughts on Kevin Samuels, and I found that interesting. He said they're not listening anyway. As long as they see one overweight woman with 3 or 4 kids who can marry some stud somewhere or some high value man, they're still going to try, you know, because that's female nature. One thing I do want to drive home the point, and you guys heard, because we recently had a conversation here on the black side of YouTube, where, you know, I had a young brother who basically said that black women are our enemy. And I'm telling you that they're not your enemy. They are just women doing what women do. And it's nothing to take personal. You got me, a black man from America, from the urban inner city. You got Sandman from Canada somewhere, white guy, saying the same thing. It's female nature. It's no need to be angry with women. We're doing what women are supposed to do, what nature has calls for them to do, to have urges to do. This is what they do. This is what women do. The shit test, the disrespect. Unless you're willing to go back and forth with them and constantly put them in check, they're going to run wild. And the more technology we have, the less they need men, the worse they're going to behave. You heard a prediction. What did Sandman say? He said at some point, women are going to take over politics. They are going to be the ones in charge. And you're going to get so pissed off about it, you're going to walk away, and then they're going to come up with laws to force you back into servitude, so to speak. So this is a prediction, you know, not from me, but from one of the originators. Again, I appreciate the philosophy, but I think it's important to have a healthy understanding of history, of sociology, of psychology, of biology, because that's what Sandman and I were talking about. A large component of red pill knowledge comes from biology and psychology. So unless you understand those, I happen to be, you know, a student of biology and degreed in biology, so I get the concepts. Unless you understand that, you're not eating your red pills with food. So what happens when you don't take your medicine with food? You take it on an empty stomach. What happens? Makes you sick. And a lot of you young men who are taking these red pills too soon without having those lived experiences to balance them out. Because what I heard from Sandman was a very balanced thought, a thoughtful person, very balanced in the way he thought. So, you know, he like he's from Generation X. So he's in his 40s. And so he has lived experiences. Many of you young men, you're in your 20s, your early 20s, some of you in your teens, you're taking these red pills, you're becoming angry, you're filling yourself up with rage. And it does not wear well on you. What is it? What was his advice to the young man who had been red pill? Go out and date. You can't be a man walking away from anything unless you have something to walk away from. You don't have any lived experiences. You don't have enough experience to walk away from what the rest of us are dealing with. You haven't been through any divorces. You haven't got any women pregnant. You haven't dealt with the baby mama drama. What are you complaining about? Just enjoy it. Recognize what's out there. We brought up a concept that many of you guys didn't know. And the reason I know you didn't know it is because I've been listening to the modern day Manosphere probably 4 or 5 years. And very rarely do I ever hear anybody talk about purple pill. Purple pill what? You're red pill, but you're still out dating. So it's awareness. The crazy thing is, fellas, and this is going to sound revolutionary, but if you had fathers and grandfathers who weren't simps, who sat around and talked to you, who took you out back to the oak tree where the men would congregate when the women were in the kitchen cooking and gossiping, you would have heard these things. But because many of you black men especially weren't privy to those conversations for whatever reason, you know, missing black fathers, disjointed families, our families moving from the South to Chicago and Detroit and Oakland and LA and in the 1950s and 20s and 30s, you didn't have that old time knowledge. Those men would have told you the same thing. You would have been purple pill. They would have taught you the same things I'm teaching. Don't put these women on pedestals. They're not to be pedestalized. Why? Because they're human beings and they're going to do what women do. You would have seen it. You would have heard it. You see? So most of you are purple pill. You're not blue pill. If you're on the Manosphere, you're listening to the Manosphere and you're hearing about female nature and you watch Kevin Samuels and you listen to BGS and all these other guys, you're not blue pill. You're not ignoring the obvious. You're here for a reason. But unfortunately, you don't have that balance. And this is all new to you as opposed to something that you learned growing up from observation. You had a father or a grandfather pointing something out to you. And so you were able to put it in a certain category and say, okay, I get it. And so when women start selling you on the lines of sugar and spice and everything, you nice, you're like, oh no, sweetheart, you get it. And you could have made a choice, but you haven't. So some of you have an issue with me talking to some of you, not all of you. Some folks mention the fact that, oh, Sandman's white. How can you talk to him about black issues? Well, you're black. You're a black audience. Don't you want to hear what he has to say about black issues, especially if he's one of the progenitors of the Manosphere? You want me to just talk about what white folks are doing? How is that interesting to you? How does that help you? There's a lot more I could have asked them, but we figured that out. But what I wanted was a historical account of the formation of the Manosphere, the men's rights movement, some of the names. Now you have them. You have Barbarossa. I suggest that's the first person you go find on the internet. And you make sure you listen, right? Tom Leykis, Thinking Ape, Razorblade Candy, Stardusk, who actually is also Thinking Ape. Make sure you check out these videos. And make sure you go through Sandman's MGTOW's videos because they're very, very helpful and very create understanding for you guys. All right, appreciate that, man. Black Mind said his contrast did help, but not because he's not black. It's helped because he's informative, right? And I'm gonna tell you, I enjoy listening to Sandman because of the lack of emotion. I just get the facts and then I can go with it at that point. I used to always enjoy listening to Sandman because his red pills are concentrated. It's not all over the place. And I appreciate that. So, you know, that I remember some time back, some of the members of the Manosphere used to get upset with Sandman because he kept it so simple. But simple is great. You know, here's a lesson. Here's another lesson. Just like we broke down True Force Loneliness and Red Pill Rage and Blue Pill Blues. And he talked extensively about feminism versus MGTOW, Purple Pill, and Brefault's Law, and all these different concepts. They're there for you. If you consider yourself Red Pill and you don't understand these concepts, just stop it. You're just a guy trying to learn. But also, don't neglect your studies of history. There are books that you can read. Read the Holy Bible. I'm telling you, once you truly get red pilled, once you truly become aware, everything will look different to you. Politics, philosophy, religion, war, television, movies, everything will take on a different, it's almost like you have a new lens so you can see new colors on the spectrum when you have that red pill knowledge, so to speak. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. I'd like to appreciate you guys for your donations. If you appreciate what I'm doing, hit the #1 button. Let me know you guys are in here. If you appreciate, think this was a win. Was this a win for the overall manosphere, Black manosphere, whatever? It was a coming together of minds. You know, I got a chance to ask him a lot of questions that I had, that a lot of you had. And I think it's important because at the end of the day, you're here for information. You're here for knowledge. You're here to learn to help enhance your life. And that's what I want to do here. You know, I want you guys to become better men. I want you men to be the best men you can be. Again, I focus on Black men, specifically Black American men. But for the most part, I want you guys to be the best men you can be. And if there's a source where you can learn from, then we should do that. I think all of the people, all of the men, especially the more popular guys, I think we should look deep and give Black men and especially this knowledge. You know, if it's there, dig it up, put it forward so they'll have it. Otherwise, you're missing out. Otherwise, you're missing out on lessons that you could have learned. You know, you want a comprehensive 360-degree balance lesson, and learning about women and female nature is just 1 degree in that. You got 360 degrees of knowledge, and that's just 1 degree. History is another, mathematics, science, philosophy, biology, sociology, geography. All these things are important for you to become a true scholar. I want to know when I'm in a conversation with somebody that they have a great understanding of the concept in addition to the historical background so they can put things in context. So this is why this is important, okay? So, hey, appreciate you guys. We'll wait. I'm gonna try and get you guys back in here. I would love to have some people come in and ask some questions, but I guess we got the pre-lunch rush hour crowd. So y'all are not really y'all are not really ready to battle it out, but that's okay. All right.
Hey, what's up, you guys? I want to introduce you all to VK Platinum. I know that's backwards on the screen, but this is what I've been taking. As you guys know, man, I've been dealing with some health issues for a while. But now, after taking these VK Boost capsules and these other recommended items, I have been able to clear up a lot of congestion, a lot of things that have been ailing me, man. This is a great supplement, Black owned. I appreciate you guys, man. If you would check them out, you should be able to find the link below in the description section so you can go ahead and order. But make sure you tell them that Uncle D sent you, and that's VK Platinum. Some good high quality stuff, man. Check it out. Hey, if you're enjoying the content here at Dennis Sperling Unfiltered, make sure you support it by sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And also, hit that little notification bell in the corner so that you'll get notice of each and every one of our live streams.
All right, guys. I guess you guys are not interested in talking. That's fine. No problem with that. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all the donations. Big shout out to my guys who contributed to the Super Chat, the Cash App, and the PayPal. Let me make sure. Shout out to John Williams and Jared James. Thank you guys. You true Red Pill guys, you'll appreciate this. But other than that, man, I've had a great time. Big shout out to Sandman MGTOW. You're welcome back anytime. And for the most part, that's all I got to say. Hey, it's time for me to go back to work. And so this is Uncle D, and I'm out.